The session today is focused on why successful law firms are moving to the cloud. And I'm delighted to be hosting these 3 sessions with our esteemed partner sa.global, who together with Microsoft are committed to driving that digital transformation within legal services. We've got 3 key topics to run you through today in terms of the agenda. So I'm supported by Tom Wilde, who's one of our Microsoft Azure specialists, Fieldfisher. So I'm delighted to bring Mabel Harvey, who's the IT director, into the conversation with us today. And finally, Paul Honeyman, who's the head of product development at sa.global, and will then be followed by a Q&A session hosted by sa.global's director, Nick Meredith. So good to have you on board as well. So before I move forward, I'd like to hand over to Tom Wilde to talk to us about how to maximize value with Azure and Microsoft's approach to privacy. So Tom, why don't I hand over to you?
Thanks very much, Jamie. So yeah, as Jamie mentioned, so Tom Wilde, I'm an Azure Specialist here at Microsoft, and effectively that means I help customers with their adoption plan. And part of that is from building trust, working out how Microsoft Azure works, all the way to actually deploying it. So hopefully you get a flavour of that today. Yeah, jump in with any questions. So what are we hearing from our customers over the past year, really? Obviously, lots has changed over the last year. Key ones out of the messages really is budgets have been tightened. So there's been a lot of cost cutting over the last year, and people are looking to Microsoft as to how we can help save that, provide some efficiencies and those sorts of things. Bit of a gap in skills. So how can Microsoft help on an Azure skills perspective, whether you want to enable your networking team to learn cloud networking, storage team to learn cloud storage, those sorts of use cases. Unique security and compliance requirements. This is very prevalent in legal industry. Data is key. Obviously, you hold a lot of secure and important data to your own customers, so having complete control over it is key. And whether that's managing your own encryption keys or using Microsoft, there's lots of flexibility there, so we get lots of questions around that. And actually one of the most common question over the last year is how do we respond to cyber attacks? I don't know if you know, the result of the pandemic has doubled, if not tripled, cyber attacks. And there was a huge one on Sunday, which affected like 50% of the East Coast United States oil production. So just the cyber attack over there from potentially an administrator working remotely. That's how they think it happened. That's how the ransomware attack was deployed there. So lots of concerns, security compliance, but particularly around security threats in there. Now, if we look at what Microsoft Cloud is, when someone says Microsoft Cloud, you kind of have to ask, well, what cloud? Because there's lots of clouds that Microsoft have, from Microsoft 365, Office, Windows, all those sorts of things, LinkedIn, Dynamics 365, GitHub, Power Platform, and there's lots more, right? Skype, Bing, and Xbox and all those sorts of things, but effectively they run on Microsoft Azure. So think of Azure as the building blocks, the services that can build other clouds and other customers' infrastructure and data centers and applications. They all sit on Azure. Now, this is a key point with legal firms. We spend quite a lot of time talking about Microsoft's approach to privacy and compliance, because this is, a key part for legal industry with having control over the data. So our approach to privacy and compliance is based on years and years working with regulators, companies large and small, and our own partners feed into this as well. But effectively, we're a company that's driven by principles, and we believe that security is built from the ground up in the cloud. So all the way from kind of the foundations, the physical infrastructure, up to who has access to what servers, and up to who has access to what pieces of software, up to who has access to customer data, all those sorts of things. Ground up, we're open, we share it all on the Microsoft Trust Center. So any concerns, head to the Microsoft Trust Center. It's all open sourced and available for people to ask us questions on it. Compliance wise, we spend a huge amount of time, effort and money in achieving compliance certifications, helping customers achieve their own certifications and audits and all those sorts of things. Audits seem to take up a huge amount of time for law firms, so there's various programs that Microsoft have to help customers with their own audits, so you can do various automations, so there's lots less manual work for customers to do. And privacy is the key one, right? So we believe privacy is a right. So your data is your data. It's not Microsoft's data to run adverts or to sell it or to do anything with it. It's your data. You decide where it resides. You decide what geography, what encryption key. It's completely under your control. And you can even make it so Microsoft have no visibility of it. So even if there's a subpoena or anything like that, we don't know what the data is because you hold your own encryption key. There's key points there that reside within law firms. So what is Azure? So most people think of Azure as an infrastructure play, so infrastructure as a service, running virtual machines like most people do on premise with a VMware or Hyper-V or Xen or something. You know, you've got your Windows, your Linux servers, bit of networking, bit of storage, security and identity, and that is kind of, you know, cloud infrastructure service bread and butter. Yes, Azure can do that and do that really well, but I suppose the main benefits or the benefits that we push customers towards is the serverless area. So this is where you don't manage Windows and Linux, and you don't have you don't have the need to patch, feed and water all of this infrastructure. And through moving towards serverless in the future and having a journey towards that, that's your journey to huge cost savings and huge benefits on your total cost of ownership, because there's a lot less for your staff to do. So the operational savings cost is actually more than the infrastructure savings costs. And how do you actually deploy that? So lots and lots of dev tools. So Microsoft acquired GitHub a few years ago with, you know, big open source fans now. And there's lots of tools to be able to interact with that to help developers develop for serverless rather than, you know, infrastructure and Windows and Linux. Serverless is the future there. And even if you've made big commitments to a provider or a cloud or on-premise over the next few years, you can run Azure on-premise now. There's some really clever technology, so you can run these serverless components in AWS, in GCP, in VMware on-premise. You can get some of those operational savings without actually having your infrastructure in Azure, which is really, really quite clever. And again, there's the whole kind of security and compliance framework over the top. Again, you can hold your own key on premise, and regardless of where the infrastructure is, there's no risk there. So if we look at Azure as a footprint, so massive global firm, obviously Microsoft are. Now, we focus a lot on giving customers choice. Now, when we think about the amount of regions that Microsoft have, I think it's more than our, you know, number 2 and number 3 competitors combined. And that's because we want to give customers the choice as to where their data resides. So if you're a UK firm and you only want your data to stay in the UK, you have complete control over it. You choose our UK regions, and regions are made up of data centers as well. Or if you want, you know, some of your estate and some of your applications and data to only exist in APAC or Singapore or Hong Kong, there's choice there for our customers. From a security perspective, so Microsoft have 3,500 individuals that are full-time just working on security, and a large part of that is red team and blue team operations. So a red team at Microsoft will try and hack Microsoft, and our blue team at Microsoft will try and defend Microsoft. And they're really, really motivated, because I think at the end of each month, the winner of that little competition gets paid their bonus. But the fact is that if the red team manage to get through a few layers of security, then we'll learn from it as a business. We're constantly testing our own security, and therefore that provides benefits to our customers and partners. And when you think about how people are dealing with security now, a lot of that is down to artificial intelligence, because there's just so much information to be able to process. It's almost impossible for humans. So we rely on artificial intelligence, and that having a good AI algorithm and all those sorts of things relies on the data, and Microsoft have the most amount of security data, if you think about it. So 6.5 trillion signals a day. That's from Xbox, Bing, Office 365, Dynamics, Azure, all of our services worldwide. That gives us really rich telemetry from a security perspective that again benefits our customers. So we can understand what a lateral movement attack looks like, a ransomware attack, process elevation, all those sorts of things that are quite difficult to spot, we can look at that across our whole footprint. And again, in terms of the amount of investment Microsoft spend on security, it's astronomical, right? It was $1 billion last year. I'm sure it'll be more this year. And from a compliance perspective, we have, I think, well over 90 compliance frameworks that we adhere to. We're helping customers audit themselves and helping them audit us as well, whether it's GDPR, ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials, G-Cloud, all those sorts of things. We spend a lot of time and money to help customers do it. And that's one of the reasons why so many customers, particularly in the Fortune 500, utilize Azure for their own compute, right? And some of the logos on that screen, we've had to jump through quite a few security and compliance hoops, but once we've done it once, then it benefits all future customers and existing customers as well. So if we're looking at some of the value props of Azure, particularly in the last year, remote working's been key. Obviously, there's been quite a few lockdowns, but lockdown one was particularly challenging for some of the customers that I work with. But we've helped customers go from almost no BCP or remote working strategy to scale up to like 5,000 remote workers within a few days, and they've said it's literally saved some businesses of theirs, but by utilizing this endless compute of cloud to help their customers, to help their users actually work from home. So it's quite a key point there that the remote working is a high priority for Microsoft. Efficiency and cost optimizations, if you think about those budgets, whether it's virtualizing desktops or applications, or having that ability to just use Azure as a potential disaster recovery point where you pay almost nothing, but in the event of a disaster, then you can scale up instantly. That's kind of some key areas where we're helping customers save some money and increase efficiency there. Innovation's really where the exciting part of cloud, that kind of next gen data center anywhere, is the real interesting part, and where you get maximum savings. And that serverless side is where we're guiding all customers to, where you don't have that Windows and Linux operating systems to manage, feed, patch, water, all those sorts of things. You can run those Azure technologies in Azure, obviously, but you can run them in AWS, you can run them on premise. So you can take slices of Azure and run them anywhere and get those operational cost savings and time savings. And security posture as well. So lots of people are moving to Azure now to enhance their security posture. I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, it used to be a bit of a blocker or a bit of a road hump to talk about trust and security compliance, but now it's very much an enabler. And you can utilize Azure to enhance your footprint and to run kind of automated audits and automated compliance measuring. Again, regardless of where that infrastructure resides in Azure, you can constantly be testing for security holes, constantly be looking for administration errors, which is one of the key things that hackers and cyber attackers are looking for, particularly over the last year. And I think that's what happened on Sunday with that pipeline. An administrator working remotely, that's a concern for customers. And if we look at business critical applications, so again, PMS, the DMS, lots of legal firms are looking at how to make managing their biggest applications, their monolithic applications. What's the easiest way to do it? Is it SaaS? Is it PaaS? And Microsoft work with those partners to move them and make them SaaS, or you can run them as a platform as a service, or run them as infrastructure as a service. Regardless of whether it's a tiny container or a monolithic application, we're helping customers, particularly law firms, modernize and save a lot of time, effort, and money in doing that. Scale and performance. So there's a virtual machine, there's a PaaS service for any type, whether it's like I said, a tiny container, a big application that requires thousands of servers. They can scale, they can be global. It really doesn't matter. There's lots of choice when it comes to Microsoft. Because there's so much choice, that means that you can build your own service level agreements with your own internal customers or external customers. So whether you want to be highly available in the UK, or you want to be globally highly available, or active in many different regions and geographies, that there's choice there for you to do all of that. And due to all of those points, they're kind of the reasons why you can achieve cost effectiveness, right? Lots of people look at Azure as just a place to put virtual machines, but really it's much more. And people will be hybrid for some time. Even Microsoft have a few years left of being a hybrid company, because not everything has moved yet and not everything is valid for it. But you can run pretty much the Azure technologies on premise for the remainder of your on premise contracts, which is quite good. And disaster recovery is normally the first place that we're seeing law firms dip the toe in the water to help them along that journey. So how did Microsoft help? So last slide from me. I think particularly over the last few years, we've looked into processes and guidance. So there's a framework called Cloud Adoption Framework. So regardless of whether you're going to move to the cloud in 5 years or next year, I'd advise you to look at what the Cloud Adoption Framework that helps you understand all of the key components, the buy-in that you need on premise, the type of processes, the security compliance frameworks that we adhere to. And there's lots of tools to help you achieve that, not just technical. Lots of our enablement isn't anything to do with technical, it's more helping businesses understand what the cloud is. Particularly skills as well, so lots and lots of learning resources to help customers understand what the cloud is and train up their networking team to be networking in the cloud and storage team to be cloud storage architects. And lots of partnerships and programs to help customers adopt. So whether we invest in a partner or invest in a customer, just reach out to Microsoft and ask us questions, because there's lots of programs to help customers adopt the cloud, really. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Tom, providing some real insight there into the value of cloud computing with Microsoft Azure and security and compliance it can bring your organization. So feel free to keep those questions coming and we can test Tom at the end. Now, one of my favorite parts of the session today is hear the amazing project undertaken by Mabel Harvey, the IT director at Fieldfisher. And just to highlight, Mabel was instrumental in making this decision to move to cloud-based technology, utilizing Microsoft, incorporating the sa.global evergreen legal layer. But before I steal any more of your thunder, please, Mabel, let me hand over to you.
Jamie, thank you. Thank you for that introduction there. So, yeah, I'm Mabel Harvey. I'm the IT director at Fieldfisher. Been here many years and have been involved in many iterations of our infrastructure journey, from building servers on site to start moving to infrastructure as service to now starting to do some great work in Azure. So I'll just talk you through a bit of our journey and then I'll cover the benefits and challenges that we've experienced towards the end. So, first of all, I do think it's amazing what Microsoft have done with their technology stack. Windows Azure was released about 10 years ago, and we started to look at it probably about 5 or 6 years ago when we felt it was becoming something we could embrace. I remember attending a Microsoft webinar, I don't know how many years ago now, but when the evangelists were there describing their aircraft hangar type data centres that they were going to introduce in multiple locations around the world. I mean, anyone who's worked on a data centre procurement, you would know that you typically engage with your vendor. You want to understand who's managing the estate and you'd actually want to do a site visit, but this wasn't something that Microsoft was going to entertain. We couldn't do a site visit. So initially there was a bit of an air of mystery around it. And I think perhaps a bit of skepticism, especially in law firms, because we like to have control. We're used to having control, seeing where our data is, seeing how it's managed. But actually, I think Microsoft have worked hard over the years to actually make Azure what it is now, and it's gone from strength to strength. You can definitely see the benefits from their investment in all sorts of areas. So just to move on to our change, so our digital transformation strategy started about 10 years ago when we decided to move from on-prem servers to infrastructure as a service. This wasn't with Microsoft at the time. We selected a partner and we worked in what I would say was hybrid mode. So we had some servers in our computer room in our old office and some in the cloud. I remember having many conversations with the partners, just trying to explain the nuances between private cloud and public cloud. Thankfully, those conversations aren't happening anymore. People trust what we have, which is really, really good. When we moved office in 2014, we didn't have a choice. There's nowhere in this building to put load of servers, we had to move into a full cloud solution. And wow, that was absolutely amazing. I don't think anybody, you talk about the benefits in advance, what you're going to achieve, but actually one of the biggest things we saw within weeks of moving was that, and just to recall that we do have multiple offices around the world. So the London office was moving. We didn't need to bring the systems down for everybody. We'd moved the data centre, we moved office, everybody could continue working. If anybody didn't want to come into the office on the first day after the move, they could work from home. And that was a bit of a game changer for us and a serious eye-opener about the power of having your infrastructure estate or your software applications and solutions sitting outside of your main office. So from then on, we started to define our cloud strategy and we started to explore all sorts of solutions. We've got many cloud solutions, but also the SaaS and the platform as a service. Shortly after the move, we started the procurement on our practice management system, and looking at what Microsoft were doing around the Dynamics piece kind of intrigued us a little bit. ERP systems have been out for a long while. Bigger organisations than us use them, and we kind of felt there was an opportunity here with investing in a system that could be modular. One of the things we all do is we buy systems, we bolt them on, we try and integrate them. But actually, maybe there was a chance here that we wouldn't have to do that anymore, that actually you could just buy a system and start to turn things on that would naturally integrate. The data's in one place and easy access for everybody. I have to say the start of the journey was a little bit tricky. It wasn't something we were used to. In law firms, we tend to be creatures of habit. We like the way that we used to work, and actually changing people's mindsets and their approach to how we develop technology took a little while. But I think that we're 5 years in now, so I'd say in the last 2 years, we definitely start to see the value being derived from the product and the investments that we've made. If I just talk about some of the challenges. So, there are benefits, but there are also challenges. And I think if you look at Azure, and Tom's just done a great presentation of all the elements that are involved, the first thing you've got to think about is your own internal infrastructure. Many law firms like us, I've got a great team of specialists, and they have built our AD in the way that it's kind of grown on and evolved over the years. So that's one of the first things we had to do, was get that in order, because once you start to use the Azure AD, obviously you don't want to be sending over data that's old, out of date, groups that don't work, individuals that have left the organisation. So we really had to work hard to do that housekeeping and actually set some new policies for how we're going to manage that going forward. Thankfully, the team have maintained that. They've learned on their way, but they've actually maintained that, which has been excellent. Our first entry into Azure was platform as a service. We didn't have to worry about building servers. We didn't have to worry about maintaining that element, which was a challenge for the IT team. I think that's one thing. Upskilling your teams is important. There was a little bit of nervousness from them around control. They're used to building things from the ground up. All of a sudden it's been delivered to them. Basically, you just switch it on, you maintain it, manage the capacity. They struggled with that. But actually over time, and working with Microsoft have been super helpful. sa.global have been super helpful in just advising the things we need to worry about, and actually the things that we used to worry about actually fell away. So there's definitely a benefit in working with the partners in that way. I would say invest the time and effort in experts. Unless you've got the experience in-house, definitely work with some partners or with Microsoft directly. I think Tom talked about the adoption program. That has definitely matured. And what I have seen, which is refreshing, is that actually Microsoft are now understanding, so law firms, as part of the professional services firms, that we don't all work like the big banks or some of the bigger organisations they work with. There's a different methodology, a different mentality, and our concerns around our data, the privacy, security, compliance, the certifications, all those sorts of things. I think now that we're sort of getting traction with some experts in Microsoft who can understand the way that we want to work, that has been super helpful. I would also say governance, get that governance structure in place. One of the great things about Azure is it leads you into Office 365. As you start to turn things on, your workforce won't care where they're putting the data, but clearly for me, the risk team, our information security team, we want to make sure that we don't allow them just to put things out in the Wild West. We need to make sure we've got that control. So governance has played a huge part in what we're doing. It causes frustrations with the business sometimes because they want something. They want you to switch it on, SharePoint, OneDrive. Why can't you just turn it on? It doesn't work like that. And I'd rather invest the time up front now in getting that structure right and in place. And then at least we know that once they do start to use these tools, we know where our data is. We've got some control and we've got some security. One of the other challenges Microsoft may see that as a benefit is things are constantly changing. The apps are changing all the time. Now, it's great in some senses, but if you recall going back a few years when you installed your systems, you'd work on your one update a year. You'd know what your features were. We'd roll them out in a controlled way. We'd do all the testing in advance. We'd take our users on the journey by giving them training and guidance and reference guides. Well, that's kind of gone out the window a little bit. We don't allow Microsoft just to update our platform. We know what updates are coming, but they are regular, and we've actually got a team of people who manage that now. We didn't need to have that before. Their job is just to be keeping control of the estate, the stack, looking at what the new features are, seeing how they're going to work, testing them, because sometimes things break, testing them thoroughly, and when we're ready, then we roll them out to the users. I have to say, from a user perspective, sort of the user adoption perspective, they are getting better. I do think the consumerisation of IT, people running apps on their mobile devices and in their personal life, where they're updated without them having to worry, if they're quite intuitive, then it's not such a big deal. And I'm hearing a lot less noise, from people being concerned about changes that have been made on the system. Where it is something significant, and then clearly we do give them advice, we do some short training sessions, but most of the stuff we introduce will be a change to the interface, but it is an improvement as well, which is really good. So moving on to some of the benefits, I do like to give you a bit of a balanced view on this. So new methodology for us around the setup of architecture. I think Tom hit the nail on the head. I like the phrase serverless. It's true. Why are we worrying about buying tin, updating tin, worrying about the power supplies, worrying about the business continuity, running about the sprinkler system, the cooling system? We don't need to worry about that. Microsoft take care of all of that for you. We worry about the important things, and that is providing critical business applications to our business, making sure the resilience is there, making sure they are secure, making sure they comply with our regulators. We've got several accreditations here. We're getting audited on a regular basis, questionnaires from clients. I mean, I think so far this year we've had over 20. It's just becoming something we have to do. So let's focus on making sure that our systems are built with privacy, security, all of those sorts of things built in at the foundation level, and then making sure that our users can use the systems on a daily basis. The resilience side, I think, also from a business continuity and backup perspective. So we're running in hybrid mode. We've got some things in Azure, we've got some things in a infrastructure as a service data center, but we're responsible for testing those for business continuity. How refreshing when you do that. That if they want to use a practice management system, we can still give them access to that. We don't have to worry. Let's take the other systems down and that doesn't come down. So I look forward to a time when we actually start to put more in Azure and they all start to fall under that umbrella. Capacity management, I mean, it's so much easier now. If we are going to do a test and dev, we're getting some new applications in, we can power those up. We can use those systems for the purpose. When we finish with them, we can just blow them away. That gives us so much more flexibility now. Yes, you pay for it, but it's on a consumption basis. And it means we haven't got to have servers just sitting around cold, waiting to be utilised and all that implementation of the software. It's so much easier doing it through this platform. So I think overall, there have been some operational savings. I think on the hardware procurement side, absolutely. I would say that you really need to understand your licensing. Having worked with Microsoft for over 20 years, the licensing doesn't get any easier. I think there's somebody who works in Microsoft whose job it is to make it as complex as possible. And so we've got all these experts trying to explain what the changes are and why the licensing model is slightly different. So you do need to get your head around that. But overall, I think there are some great opportunities to come out of using Azure, Office 365, and I, for one, in the next 12 months, will be turning on a lot more features for our users and look forward to actually looking for opportunities to use them for clients as well, as developing the way that we work, improving our business, our workflows, the automation, using the SQL, starting to look at some of the analytical tools that they're running as well in there, because I think that'd make a huge huge difference to our business. Thank you.
Thanks, Mabel. It's a great story and some great insights on your move to the Microsoft Cloud. Obviously, Dynamics 365 with the evergreen legal layer. You know, fundamentally for us all, it's all about making it relevant for law firms. Now, let's move on to the next section. I want to introduce you to Paul Honeyman, who is SA Global's head of product development. You know, Paul's a key architect in both our legal offerings, Evergreen and Empower, okay, that enhance the Dynamics 365 platform. If you want to position Evergreen and Empower in your minds, you can think about Evergreen as enhancing the back office operations for law firms, whether it's matter management, time capture, approvals, client billing, surfacing all to the lawyer's portal. And Empower is all about enhancing the front office, so all around client engagement, maybe revealing that complex web of connections, both personal and public, that you can leverage in client bid situations, client onboarding, client matter inception, etc. So let me hand across to Paul, who will take you through the next 15 minutes. Paul.
Hi, morning everyone. I'm Paul Honeyman, Head of Product Development here at SA Global. Before we get into the value proposition of Evergreen and Empower, I think it's important to explain what we mean by true cloud. True cloud is used to describe a platform that is not limited by the number of users or the amount of storage. True cloud systems are designed from the ground up to exist in the cloud. The software is coded to perform a fully hosted and integrated solution. So yes, what is more, a true cloud solution can take advantage of the full stack that a provider like Microsoft offers. This is a really important distinction to make, as many vendors can claim to be in the cloud, but in reality they've merely moved their on-premise software to be hosted in the cloud. And this limits an organisation in terms of their ability to self-serve, to secure, to upgrade and integrate their systems effectively. Microsoft likes to say cloud on your terms, so meaning that your firm dictates the control over the move to cloud. SA Global's Evergreen and Empower offerings gives your firm complete control over cloud. You can control your data, the scalability, you can control your cloud costs, where it lives, the customizations you want to place on your software and the configurations that go within it. You also control what it integrates with and what services you might want to use today or in the future in the Azure cloud. So of course, it's one thing having access to the right technology, but in order to deliver value for customers, it's imperative that you understand their industry and what their key drivers are to create great products that address the real needs of organisations. Here at SA Global, we've decades of experience within the legal and professional services industries that mean we can provide the specific industry know-how already baked into our products. So as we can see on this slide, we believe that the combination of Microsoft with our Evergreen and Empower suites has created much more than just a practice management system. So just to dive in a bit deeper, Evergreen is our transactional layer. It provides the heavy lifting and traditional back office processes where efficiency is key. Evergreen is architected on Dynamics 365 Finance, which is a first-party cloud app in the Microsoft stack. It's worth mentioning that D365 is single-tenanted, meaning that all the infrastructure and data is ring-fenced, giving the customer the same control as they had with their on-prem instance, but in the cloud, and with all the associated benefits that true cloud brings. Evergreen also reduces the total cost of ownership. Business processes that in the past have required individual systems such as expenses, collections and conflict checking even, are all part of the Evergreen platform. Empower, on the other hand, concentrates on improving the fee earner experience through intuitive business apps that are available anywhere and at any time, BI and analytics that are served in real time, and also uses AI to provide reaction and proactive assistance on demand. So traditionally, law firms have purchased single solutions deployed to solve a specific business problem. With Evergreen and Empower, we wanted to take a different approach. We've created a platform that spans across the business and all its functions, creating a truly connected organisation. We wanted to ensure that Evergreen was built solely with business benefit in mind. In order to achieve this, we use 4 key design principles aimed at setting the law firm free to focus on their business objectives. So first of all, we want our products to be frictionless. Frictionless is all about driving business efficiency, which is a key component to commercial success. Our aim is to enable those that interact with our platform to concentrate on their core work, removing the cost and burden of low-value repetitive tasks. The user experience is concentrated on reducing unnecessary interaction, all with the goal of allowing the user to maximise their chargeable time. We've leveraged low-code tools to empower firms to automate manual or paper processes. For example, using the Power Platform AI Builder to automatically upload and process vendor invoices into the Evergreen system. Removing friction is also important when considering managing and maintaining an organisation's software assets. Our Empower product suite is built on a low-code framework that allows us to bring value to market when it is ready. The deployment story is simple, and as such, the law firm can take advantage of this value on demand rather than having to wait for a predetermined release date. Secondly, we ensure our products are resilient. As you've heard from the guys previous to me, cybersecurity, digital transformation, regulatory compliance, data protection are all major concerns to any organisation. As we said, law firms have typically taken a best-of-breed approach to selecting their line of business systems, and so from a security perspective, this presents a complex security problem. Policies need to be harmonised seamlessly, passing through privileges and permissions from one disparate system to the next, which normally requires yet another system to handle the orchestration. Microsoft Security Stack is embedded right across our platform. Therefore, Evergreen provides a consistent security management experience across both business and productivity applications, reducing the need for specific or niche security capabilities and skills within your IT teams. We have further enhanced the security capability of the product recently by introducing an ethical walls feature. Again, historically in the marketplace, this is functionality that is satisfied by a separate system, but now becomes part of our standard offering. And next, we want our users to be enlightened. Having the ability to store and reason over organisational data in one place allows a law firm to understand more about its customers, products, its own people and processes, providing insight and opportunity like never before. So historically, as law firms have not been able to collect and store all their data easily due to these disparate systems. The Evergreen, created by the best-of-breed approach, the Evergreen platform simplifies this process, as organisational data is captured and stored in one single place, thus removing the need for complex integration projects. Now, insight is great, but it is made more powerful with the ability to act upon that insight. In order to enable our users to take immediate action, we have used the Power Platform to create workflows directly from within our analytical dashboards. And last of all, we want our users to be engaged. With the advent of widespread home working, it has meant that virtual real-time collaboration has become fundamental to almost every organisation across the globe. Also, customers now want quick and easy access to the relevant information about the progress of their matters on demand. So being able to satisfy requirements around engagement are fundamental to the law firm's long-term competitiveness. With this in mind, we've taken a step back to consider how the lawyer of today works. Where do they spend the majority of their time? What tasks are they undertaking on a day-to-day basis? Microsoft recently quoted the following stat. So remote workers spend 60% of their day in a web browser or in Office apps. If they also run Teams, that number jumps to 90%. So we've had a look at how we can drive engagement between elements of our platform and the key personas that heavily use traditional Microsoft productivity tools. As a result, we have seamlessly integrated our platform into Microsoft Teams. As it stands today, the Evergreen Hub, the Empower Time Recording app, and Empower Insight BI suites are all embedded in Teams. Recently, we released the first version of our Evergreen Assistant. The Assistant is designed to help the user retrieve matter and invoice information or kick off business processes without leaving Teams, thus removing the need for the user to understand the Evergreen system entirely, which is perfect for the busy lawyer who just needs the information and not the extra burden of understanding multiple systems. So in closing, I'd just like to say that SA Global want to meet you where you are. The combination of Empower and Evergreen offers a modern experience that is joined up, adaptable and intelligent. Evergreen Empower consists of two families of applications which drive business efficiency and operational excellence. But most importantly, Evergreen and Empower are designed to work great independently, but even better together. As I say, our goal is to meet you where you are, so you can deploy them either independently from each other, fully integrated, or with your existing systems, such as finance, billing, or CRM. The choice is yours, so you can improve workflow and reduce costs, protect your data and your business, whilst gaining insights and driving collaboration. And with that, I'm mindful of time, so say thank you very much for listening today.
Thanks, Paul. It was a great whistle-stop tour for us. Much appreciated. Look, we'd love to take some questions, and while you're all looking for the unmute button, what I'll do is I'll just lay one down for Mabel. Mabel, look, what advice would you give an organisation, obviously a law firm, looking to move their IT systems to Azure? It'd be great just so I don't know if you could summarise it for our audience while they're looking, as they may follow up some more additional questions afterwards.
Okay, so I would say, three things I would say. Firstly, develop your roadmap, understand exactly what you want to do. Get your requirements in order, think about licensing, the numbers of users, the types of users you have. Secondly, I would engage with either Microsoft or a Microsoft partner like SA Global. Engage early, start having those conversations. It's not a quick transition. You really need to engage with them and help them understand what you want to do with your requirements. And the last thing, and this you can do as you're on your journey, but consider the skills you require in the firm, whether it's technical skills. It is a different mindset working with Azure, but those technical skills, and also from the business side, if you're looking at analytics or business intelligence, do you have anyone in the firm who can actually start to learn to get the value from the systems that are out there? So that's my three key things. Thanks,
Mabel. Look, I don't know if there's any additional questions from the audience. If there is, please shout them out. We'll wait a second or two if there is for the panel. And if not, no problems. We're all here to answer. Let me just hand it back to Jamie just to close us off.
Indeed. Thank you, Nick. That's great. So in summary, and I know we've run you a little bit to time today, thank you for being part of our first briefing session. And I would like personally to thank all of the speakers for their valuable input today. I know many of you are joining us at our next two sessions, so we look forward to seeing you again. But if you haven't yet had a chance to register, please do follow the links in the previous communication you've had, or do reach out to one of us and we'll make sure that we've registered you for that session. As we haven't actually been able to meet in person, when we talk about a briefing session, it's nice to have that with some breakfast. So we'd like to offer you breakfast on us. So we'll send through some details for you to redeem that shortly. And please do keep your eyes on your inboxes. We will be circulating a digital goodie bag with all sorts of useful information and output from today's session. And finally, Microsoft and SA Global are committed to supporting law firms on their digital transformation journeys. And one of the services that we're looking to offer right now is fund a business value assessment, which enables you to get some insight into some of the cost efficiencies, benefits and savings that can be made in terms of bringing your infrastructure and your applications into the cloud, or indeed a proof of concept that will be funded indeed by Microsoft. So if there is a general interest in that, again, please do feel free to reach out. And once again, finally, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Take care now. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.